Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode of Informed and Active Citizenship. This week we will be looking at the topic that not only affects individuals but also families and future generations, the gender pay gap. You may be asking yourself, what is the gender pay gap? Before exploring this topic, I believe that it was simply women being paid less than men for the same job. However, this is not the case. The gender pay gap is a complex concept. Workplace Gender Equality Agency 2024 explained that the gender pay gaps are not a comparison of like roles. Instead, they show the difference between the average or median pay of women and men across organisations, industries, and the workforce as a whole. Today, we will be looking at four main aspects within this issue. Firstly, we will explore how salaries of men and women differ in Australia. We will then look into some of the short and long-term effects of the gender pay gap. We will then explore 5 of the main factors that contribute to this wage gap. And finally, we will identify the 3 main current initiatives that the Australian government has implemented to close this gap. So let's dive into it. How do the salaries of men and women differ in Australia? Australia reports 2 data sets of gender pay gaps each year. They report on the annual Workplace Gender Equality Employer Census and the Australian Bureau of Statistics survey of average weekly earnings. Together, these are used to indicate the gender pay gap at the time. The last gap published was in 2024 and indicated that the gender pay gap was 21.7%. Or in other words, for each dollar a man earned, a woman earned 78 cents. What are the effects of the gender pay gap? We're going to look at the short-term effects as well as the long-term effects. There are many short-term effects. When analysing the gender pay gap in clear financial terms, women earn less money each week than men do. In fact, data shows that a woman needs to work an additional 67 days a year to make the same amount that a man does. That's more than a whole day a week solely because they are a woman. This reduced capacity to earn an equivalent salary to men puts women at financial risk and makes them more vulnerable to financial crises. It also limits women's ability to afford housing and increases their risk of homelessness. In addition to short-term effects, there are also long-term effects of the gender pay gap. This reduced income not only affects women's immediate finances and life, but this difference in salary compounds over the years and has a significant impact on women's financial security over the long term. As you can see from this slide, women retire with significantly less superannuation than men, and 1/3 of women retire with no superannuation at all. In Australia, superannuation is vital as it is the primary source of income for most Australians when they retire. Women having reduced superannuation or none at all places them under financial strain in retirement. There are 5 main factors that contribute to this gender pay gap. They are gender stereotypes and biases, occupational segregation, working conditions, patriarchal constructs, and abuse and discrimination. The first factor is gender stereotypes and biases. Gender stereotypes are a social construct and reflect societal views about genders. From a young age, society teaches these stereotypes through television adverts, toys, specific roles that men and women are to play in life. These stereotypes dictate that men are the primary earners and women's work is supplementary. These stereotypical ideas influence employer decisions and lead to systemic gender bias. Occupational segregation is another factor that influences the gender pay gap. In Australia, there are clear divides between male and female-dominated industries. Unfortunately, female-dominated industries such as education and healthcare tend to be lower paid than male-dominated industries such as finance and construction. These roles often require the same amount of education or experience. However, female-dominated industries are paid at lower salaries. Working conditions also influences the pay gap. Women experience less job security than men. They are provided with less training and development. opportunities than men, and they are also provided with less promotions and career advancement opportunities than men. This is known as the glass ceiling, which women have trouble breaking through and plays a major part in the long-term gender pay gap. Patriarchal constructs is another issue. Gender inequalities also stem from patriarchal constructs within family and work. These constructs reinforce the idea that men should earn the money and women should care for the family and home. This puts pressure on women as they contribute to women having to manage a career as well as the family. The last factor that impacts the gender pay gap is that women experience high rates of violence, abuse, and discrimination in both their homes and workplaces. This places stress on women's well-being and impacts their financial security. So what's being done about it? We will look at 3 main government initiatives aiming to close the gender pay gap. They are equal remuneration orders, workplace gender equality reporting, and paid parental leave. The first initiative is the equal remuneration orders. As of 2024, the Fair Work Commission has introduced equal remuneration orders. These are a legal tool that the Fair Work Commission can use to ensure that men and women are being paid equally for work of equal value. They aim to ensure that people in female-dominated industries such as childcare and aged care are not underpaid. The second recent government initiative is the Workplace Gender Equality Act. As of 2024, all employers who employ more than 100 people are required to report on their gender pay gaps. This is done with the aim of creating transparency and accountability regarding companies' gender pay gaps, which in turn influences practices. Lastly, in 2023, the Paid Parental Leave Amendment, More Support for Working Families, Bill 2023 was passed. This increased parental leave to 26 weeks and allowed both men and women to care for their newborn. By providing leave to men and women, it aimed to normalise that caregiving responsibility should be a shared responsibility. To recap, the gender pay gap is not simply men and women being paid differently for the same job. It shows the average pay difference of men and women across the workforce as a whole. It is a complex concept which has many contributing factors, such as gender stereotypes and occupational segregation. It places short-term and long-term challenges on women's financial security. The Australian government is actively implementing initiatives to close the pay gap. Finally, we need a call to change. As active and informed citizens, it is vital that we push to close the gender pay gap. We can do this through challenging stereotypes and norms in our workplace as well as in our homes. As I mentioned initially, this is not just an issue that affects individuals, but also families and future generations. Closing the gap will benefit everyone and create a more equitable society. Thanks everyone for your time and support for the channel. As always, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching and hope to see you next time. Bye.